Okay, so today I am going to make a Mexican style chicken soup, or caldo de pollo. Here I have 2 pounds of chicken. I've removed the skin. You can leave the skin on. I just did it out of convenience. I removed the skin, and this is bone-in legs and chicken breast. Either way, it's 2 pounds. Here I have a pot of cold water. This is 2.5 liters of water, and I am going to place all of my chicken in this water, turn on the heat, and bring it up to a boil. So you can probably tell by the sound of my voice that I am sick. I've been sick for a couple of days, but today I have the energy to actually make me a delicious pot of soup, and everyone else in the house is sick as well. So here we are trying to make my grandmother's caldo de pollo. So here my chicken is in this pot of water, and by the way, check the description below for all the measurements and ingredients used in this recipe. So I'm just going to let this come up to a boil. In the meantime, I'm going to go over all the vegetables that I will be using in this recipe today. Okay, so to start, I will be using 1 pound of cabbage. I know, that probably sounds like copious amounts of cabbage, and it is. So I like a lot of cabbage in my caldo. But if you are not a cabbage lover, half this amount. Maybe go for a half a pound. But I'm going for the whole cabbage that I had today, and it's 1 pound. Okay, so here I have 1 celery stick that I just cut right in half. I'm also using 2 calabazas or Mexican squash. You could use zucchini. I'm also using 2 ears of corn, fresh cilantro. I would say that's optional because sometimes I don't have it, but if you have it, use it. I'm also going to use 1 chayote squash. It's basically another variation of Mexican squash. I actually found 1. You got that. Just 1. I guess everybody's making caldo today. I'm also going to use 1 medium onion cut into large chunks. And again, the ratios of these ingredients are up to you. I'm also using 5 cloves of fresh garlic. I'm going to give them a mash and toss them in whole. I'm also using 1 large carrot that I cut into large chunks. And I'm going to use 3 medium russet potatoes. I've already peeled them and cut those into large chunks, and I just have them setting in cold water because I don't want them to oxidize while they're sitting here, but that's the reason why I have them in water. So what I'm going to do now is continue chopping my vegetables. And again, you can chop them in large chunks, small chunks. Here, the chayote, I'm going to cut it into wedges. And you'll notice it has like a core. I'm just going to cut that out as well. Now for the squash, I'm just going to slice that into thick, large rings. Again, you can slice it as thin or as small or big as you like, but I like them in large chunks. And for the corn, I just cut them into smaller, manageable pieces. So here we are. Okay, so now that my chicken is at a rolling boil, you'll notice that it's starting to get like the foam and some of the impurities are floating to the top. So I'm just going to continually clean that as that develops. But at this point, it's at a rolling boil. So I am going to continue cooking this or allowing it to boil for 30 minutes. At this point, I've only added the water and the chicken. No seasoning, nothing else. I am going to let this boil on a medium to medium high heat for 30 minutes. Okay, so while my chicken continues to boil, I want to go over what I will be seasoning my caldo today with. So there are a couple things that you could possibly use, but today I am going to use chicken flavored bouillon, and I am using the Knorr brand. And I actually found this. This was the first time I saw this. The last time I was at the grocery store. It has no MSG. So for those of you that are sensitive to that, just know that Knorr now makes MSG-free chicken flavored bouillon powder. You could also use the Better Than Bouillon. I like to use this sometimes, but for the caldo, the flavor that I am used to comes from that Knorr bouillon powder. You could also just skip all of these bouillon-based flavorings and just opt to use salt. It is up to you, but I'm going to be using 2 tablespoons and a half of this powder. Also, I will be adding pepper to taste. Okay, so now that my chicken has been boiling for 30 minutes, I'm going to add the carrot the potato, and the chayote. Those are the vegetables that I'm going to add because they take the longest to get tender. I'm going to add all of these things, give it a mix, and I'm also going to start adding my aromatics. I will be adding the celery, the onion, the garlic, and the cilantro. I do want to mention this. So when I say to boil, for example, the chicken for 30 minutes, you start the time once the water and the chicken start to boil. So if you're starting the 30-minute cook time before the water boils, that will definitely throw off the whole cook time for this entire soup. So right now that I'm adding the onion and all these vegetables, once the water comes up to a boil, that's when I'm going to start timing. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and add the celery. I've already added the onion, and I'm going to also add that fresh cilantro. And now that it's at a rolling boil, I'm going to time it for 15 to 20 minutes. Basically, you want to boil it until your carrot and potato are knife tender. Not fork tender, but knife tender. So that may be 15, that may be 20 minutes. So it has been 20 minutes for me, and now I'm going to add my seasoning. So basically, my carrot and potatoes are knife tender, so now I'm going to start adding the seasoning. I started with 2 tablespoons. You don't want to add all your seasoning all at once. You want to taste it first because oversalting, it's hard to get rid of oversalted anything. So you want to undersalt it and work your way up from there. So definitely going for that extra half tablespoon of that bouillon base powder, and that should do the trick. Again, you definitely want to season and salt this to your taste. So taste it first. The chicken is cooked at this point, so you're not tasting broth with raw chicken in it. It's all cooked. So definitely taste it and salt it to your preference. So I went with 2.5 tablespoons of that bouillon base powder. I'm also going to add the corn at this point, all of the rest of the squash, and the cabbage. And I'm also going to add some cracked black pepper. I'm going to cover it with a lid, and once again, I'm going to bring it to a boil, cover it with that lid, and then start timing it until all of my vegetables are tender. Now, from my last caldo video, I did have some comments saying that it looked too mushy. And to that, I say this: if you do not want mushy cabbage or squash, definitely do not cook it or overcook it as long as I'm cooking it. But I like my vegetables slightly mushy. That's what I grew up with, and it probably has a lot to do with the fact that my grandmother would make this giant pot of caldo, and she would leave it there on the stove all day for those who came in and out of the house to have a bowl of caldo on really cold days or when we were all sick. So definitely cook the vegetables to your desired tenderness, but I like my cabbage to be mushy, well cooked, and the same goes for my squash. So right now, I'm just going to make sure everything is submerged in my pot. By the way, this pot is a 6.9 quart pot with a lid. So once it comes up to a boil, I'm covering it with a lid, and I'm going to gently simmer this for around another 15 minutes or until I reach the desired tenderness to my vegetables, and then it's done. Okay, so it has been 15 minutes, and my cabbage and vegetables are tender and exactly how I like them. So now I am going to serve a bowl, and I can't tell you, I definitely need this on a cold day when I'm sick. Okay, so I also wanted to show you another way we like to serve it is with some Mexican rice on the side. And if you want the recipe for this rice, I'll leave the link in the description below. But this was just a quick rice. I actually didn't even put onion in it like I normally do. So what I do is I just serve all the vegetables, chicken, and broth in a bowl, and then I serve it with a couple scoops of rice on the side. And I love to squeeze lime in it. You could also serve this with hot corn tortillas on the side. It's so delicious. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.